So if you take NMN, for example, you are like piling raw material into a factory that actually doesn't have the machines to actually turn it into anything. So what we did is, after a lot of research, we decided, there's nothing out there that's actually addressing the root cause of the problem. So why don't we design a formulation that is actually switching back on this enzyme? That's exactly what our product Nuchido Time Plus does. It switches back on the enzyme in our cells. It's an enzyme called NAMPT to allow your cells to naturally start producing NAD again.
Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, the podcast where science meets wisdom. I'm Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist, biohacker, and mom. And for years, I struggled with gut issues, hormonal imbalances, and the exhaustion of motherhood while running a business. Biohacking and functional medicine became my way back to clarity, vitality, and trust in my body. And that's why I'm here, not just to share information, but to share the practices and perspectives that truly shifted my health and my life. Each week, I bring you science-backed tools, honest conversations, and rituals I live myself so you can return to your own body's wisdom and create longevity on your own terms. Because your body already knows this is just the space to remember. Well, welcome back to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited that you're listening. Today is one of the days of my massive holiday giveaway that I'm doing. And this is my 12 holiday rituals, which is what it's called. You can win up to $5,500 US worth of wellness, longevity, and biohacking products. Amazing. Literally the biggest giveaway I have ever done. Open worldwide as well, which is so cool. Every day we are giving away a different bundle of products. And so there's going to be 12 winners, one winner per day, per giveaway, and all of them are open until December 24th. On January 4th, I will be picking the winners and I will be contacting everybody, and your prize will come to you in the mail, which is the best way to start the new year. I seriously suggest you enter. Like, the products in this are epic, are actually epic. Like, everything from red light therapy to medicinal mushrooms to salt, to skincare, like longevity supplements, which we're getting into today. So many cool things, EMF blocking devices and things for your house, non-toxic pots and pans, just the best. Different things that you can use in like your first aid kit, like natural first aid kit, or for your kids or your family, blue light blocking glasses. Honestly, the list goes on and on and on. There's so many good prizes to win, and I cannot wait to see everyone's winning prize when they win. And if they message me on Instagram, please do. If you win, send me a photo of your gift that you got and your winning prize. I would love to see that, and I'd be so happy for you. You can enter on my website, the link in my bio, in the show notes, literally everywhere. You can enter everywhere. There's so many places. You only need one link, one entry, and you are entered into all 12 giveaways. So today, we're talking about Nuchido, which is one of my favorite longevity supplements. I am really moving to longevity in general with my entire brand and business, and I'm obsessed with longevity. I love it because I feel like we all need to be striving to live healthier for longer, and for whatever deep reason we might have that for. So that could be something like, when you fall down at the age of 70, you don't want to break your hip. Or maybe cancer runs in your family and you want to do whatever you can right now so that you don't get cancer. Or maybe you don't want to get osteoarthritis like your mom. Or, you want to be able to run around with your grandkids, whatever it might be. And so I think there's so much to be said about longevity when we think long term. And there's a lot of supplements and different molecules that we can take that actually help with this. Because there are 12 hallmarks of aging that have been proven. There's so much research behind, and we talk about that in this episode. And Nuchido is one of the only supplements that I've seen that actually goes upstream. And instead of being like, oh, let me give you this one supplement that targets this one thing, this one hallmark of aging, it actually goes and looks at more of the root cause of why is there cellular decline in the first place? So I actually got to sit down with Dr. Nichola Conlon, and we talked all about this. And she's a friend of mine. I've met her in person. She's wonderful. And we really got to go through all of this and how this works and why Nuchido is so different from so many other longevity supplements on the market. And I think all the biohackers and all the people who are obsessed with aging and longevity are really going to love this episode because I did. So we talk about NAD, we talk about cellular health, and she is a molecular biologist and the founder and CEO of Nuchido. She's also a mom, so we talk about that. And she just really translates cutting edge aging research, especially around NAD and cellular health, into accessible solutions to support health span, which we also talk about. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. If you want to order Nuchido after listening to this, I have a discount code. Use BIOHACKINGBRITTANY, and I also have a link. I will link that below so you can use that. Just go open up your phone, click on it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're listening, and you can order that and save, which is really nice. If you win the prize associated with this episode, you will win 3 bottles of Nuchido, which is worth like over 150 US dollars. And that is enough for 3 months. So I love this because like it's just such a nice way to start the new year. It's enough time to actually see a difference in how you feel, maybe even how you look, and with your energy. And I just think that is so, so important. So enjoyed this episode with Dr. Nichola. I loved talking to her. And I will catch you soon for another one. Actually, I will catch you tomorrow for another day of my giveaways. And again, I really encourage you to enter. It's open globally. And I just think it's like such a rare opportunity that you get to win prizes like this. So enjoy this episode and I will chat to you soon. Hello, Dr. Nichola. Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited that you are here joining me. I feel like you are one of the women who is really pioneering this like women's longevity and longevity space in general, actually. And I think when you first came on my show, however long ago that was, I wasn't as interested in longevity as I am today. And I'm so curious, like in the last year, before we get into like the specifics and, you know, your products and stuff like that, in the last year, what have you seen change in the longevity space?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me back, Brittany. It's exciting to see you again. But yeah, I think there's been a massive shift. So the longevity space is something that I've been involved with for the last 10 years before it ever became a trendy thing, when it was really still something that was very academic, still very, you know, within scientific research labs and definitely not appearing on like Instagram and TikTok or anything like that. So for me, it's the shift that I've seen is how much people are now really understanding why this is relevant to them. And that, you know, when we talk about longevity, it's really about how to age well. And for a long time, I think society thought really there was nothing that we really could do about aging. So people kind of were very turned off and against it because they were like, you know, it's a natural thing. There's nothing we can do. But now people are realizing actually there is. And there are a lot of practical things you can do to help. And that has meant we've seen this massive shift where, you know, even the average person who has never really been following this area of science before is now going, okay, tell me a little bit more. I want to know how to age better. I want to know some of these tips and tricks and things like that. Like, I'm actually interested in listening now. And for me, as a science geek who loves talking about this has been perfect.
Amazing. I love that. I'm so curious, like 10 years ago, were you calling it longevity? Like, did you use that word or what was it called like in your circles?
Yeah, it definitely was called longevity. I think what we see now, so back then I would say it was a lot more focused on, shall we say, trying to extend lifespan. So like live longer. A lot more of the people were more concerned about like, will this extend maximum lifespan? Can this make us live longer? Whereas now the shift's very much more focused towards health span. So we already have long lifespans. We're living pretty long. But the problem is we're not living all of this lifespan in good health. And the proportion that we're living in good health is our health span. And unfortunately, we've got this big gap between how long we're living, but how long we're actually healthy. And, you know, to put that into numbers for women, I know the stats for a woman in the UK, our average lifespan is 83 years, but our health span is only 64. So that's 19 years where we're like out of our health span. So it's all about trying to extend that and make sure that we can live these long lives, but as healthy as possible. Free from age-related diseases and, free from frailty, and be able to live a kind of happy and fulfilled and independent life. So I think that's where we're seeing that real shift. It's not about just living longer. It's about just taking the lives we already have and living them better, really.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so curious about that study. I've actually haven't heard of that study before, but at this like 64-year mark, like how do they define, or how do you define, oh, I'm extending my health span and now I'm no longer healthy? Like how would
Yeah.
someone know if they've now made that transition into the part that's like no longer as healthy?
Yeah, so that isn't even a study. This is statistics from the National Office of Statistics, and what they define as health span or out of health span is having multiple or one or more chronic age-related diseases. So that is where they define it. So if you are inside your health span, you do not have an age-related chronic disease, basically. So if you think of most people over the age of 64, they are on some sort of pills. They're either got, chronically high blood pressure, or they've got some sort of cardiovascular risk. They've got some sort of diabetes, those types of things. And when you have one or more, that is considered being outside your health span because you are managing chronic age-related illness, basically.
Dang. Yeah. Oh, I'm just thinking of my parents when I'm thinking about this. So my mom is 62. I think she's
Yeah.
62. And she's starting to get osteoarthritis, is it, in her thumbs, like in her joints, and she's rubbing them and having pain. And so I guess that would count as like something that's age related, of like the bones and the joints deteriorating over time. Um, and I just
Yeah.
wonder, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that we know is that actually our age is our biggest risk factor for pretty much every single disease that we suffer from, every single chronic disease at least. Putting on years, I always say putting on years is the worst thing you can do for your health. Above all the other things that we're told are bad, drinking, smoking. Yeah, I'm not saying go ahead and do those, but the actual facts are that your age is your biggest risk factor for these things, which shows us that there is this correlation between getting older and our risk of chronic disease. So that's where scientists said, okay, is there something that maybe we can do that will target ultimately the root cause of many of these diseases? If age is our biggest risk factor, ultimately it's one of the root causes of these diseases. So is there anything we can do to even slow aging just a little bit in our cells? And if we did that, would it actually impact multiple different diseases in one go? Like, could it have a real impact on reducing the age of onset of multiple different age-related diseases?
Wow. I love that. And
So,
it's very sobering to hear too, because you can't stop aging. It's like it's out of your control. So as you say, like as the years go by, that's the worst thing you can do for your health. I'm like, dang.
but the good news is
Yeah.
it's reversible. Like, we now know, and this is the exciting bit. We now know, because everyone thought aging and, the rate at which you were aging on the inside, which is your biological age, everyone thought this was a one-way street. Like, once it had started, it was like this programmed thing that just happened. But what we now know is that it's absolutely not. You can age at different rates. You can age faster, you can age slower, you can age forwards, you can age backwards. And this is where we're starting to understand that we really do have these two ages. We always thought we had one age. We always thought we just had our chronological age, which is the number of years since we were born. But we've also got our biological age, and that's the true age that we are on the inside. And that's what's been giving us some clues as to maybe we can do something about aging, because it turns out that not everybody's chronological age and biological age match up. So sometimes when you measure biological age, some people are way higher than the chronological age, some people are way lower. And as scientists, that taught us two really important things. The first thing it taught us was that age is not fixed. It's not Aging is not fixed. It's not this thing that plays out like a program, because if it did, that would mean that your chronological age and your biological age should always be identical because they should be playing out at the same time frame, but they're not. And that shows us that there's something that's going on in our cells that's either speeding up aging or slowing it down. And if there's something going on in our cells, it means there's something we can actually target. And that's the really exciting bit. The other thing it showed us is you can measure aging. And for a long time, that was a big controversy in the space because everyone said, yeah, all this longevity science, people are trying to show you can slow aging or, whatever. But how do you even measure it? Like, how do you measure this and prove that you're doing it? But now that we have this concept of biological age, that we're becoming much more robust and reliable ways to measure it, we now can actually show if any of these things we are doing are actually truly impacting our aging inside at the cellular level.
Yeah, I love that. I have done multiple biological age tests. Okay. And at different points in my life so far. And honestly, they come back saying different things. Yeah. So like what was the one that I did? I'm forgetting, but I've done different ones where it's like I'm 10 years younger. I've done ones where I'm 10 years older.
Yeah.
And then I think about the average person who's doing these tests and like the companies who sell it to you make it sound like they're the best, right? Like,
yeah,
do our test and this is the biological age test that beats them all. So I'm curious from your standpoint, like which test actually would you say is the most accurate reflection of your biological age?
So unfortunately, I can't give you an exact answer. Like it's definitely this one because the issue is that many of these tests work in slightly different ways. They're measuring different things. So if you take maybe the top 3 ways of measuring it, you've kind of got the old school way, which was measuring your telomeres, which are the little caps on the end of your DNA that shorten as you get older, and that's kind of a measure of aging, shall we say. Now, that was the first type of test, and that was thought to be the be all and end all. But now we realize that that's very, very specific to whatever sample it comes out of. So if you measure it in your blood, you are literally just looking at the age of your blood. If you measure it in a different tissue, it is literally just looking at whatever cell or whatever tissue it comes out of. So we know that, yes, that might be a snapshot for that very particular tissue, but it's not accurate to say that that is how old you are across the body. You've then got other ones that are a little bit, broader. You've got epigenetic age testing. That's looking at patterns of which genes are basically switched on and off in your cells. We know that the pattern of these genes changes as we get older. And again, that's a little bit more broad across the body. And then there's other ones which are looking at more like inflammatory factors. So there's one called glycan age. And this is a one which is looking at patterns of glycans, which are little sugar chains that are on your immune cells. And it's looking at what the inflammatory state of the body is. Now, if I think you should do a range of all of them, because and look at the picture as a whole. The body's so complicated. It just with anything, one thing's never going to give an exact answer and reflect the whole body. But if I do pick one, the one that I always pick is glycan age. And the reason for this is because it is measuring inflammation. And we know inflammation is one of, if not the biggest driver of the aging process. And it's also something that is not localized. So it doesn't matter where you take the sample. In their case, they do blood. But if you have inflammation in one part of your body, it will be traveling to the rest of the body. Like it will become a systemic thing in general. So for me, if I have to pick one, that is why from my scientific viewpoint, why I pick that one. Because if you are older in terms of glycan age, that shows you have a lot of inflammation in the body. And we know that's no good for anyone. Mm-hmm. So getting that one reversed is a good one. It also is quite sensitive to interventions. So you can actually see it changing quite reliably with different interventions, which is a problem with some of the other tests where they're not very sensitive. So yes, it might show a result across a population, but when it comes to an individual, it's not accurate enough to be able to pick up changes when you start like changing your diet or taking different supplements or things like that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've done glycan age. I think I've done it twice. Yeah. And both times it was higher.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's been a long time since I've done it. Like, I think I did it during like the height of COVID. And
Well, yeah.
so I don't think my stress levels were really at a great point in that time. Um, but I'm curious, and this might not be a question for you as much as it might be for them, is if you were to test like your inflammation biomarker, like HSCRP, which like ideally you want under 1, like couldn't I just test my inflammation biomarkers and then be like, oh, this is in the optimal range? I guess it wouldn't give me an age, but then wouldn't I know like, oh, I'm probably aging not as quickly because of my systemic inflammation level being lower?
Yeah, I mean, CRP, it's quite I'd say it's quite a crude way of measuring it. Yes, it's going to show, like, if your CRP is through the roof, there's obviously something active going on. And I would bet that that would correlate with a higher glycan age. But when they're looking at this, they have specific signatures or specific patterns of these glycans that basically can indicate now quite accurately what is the source of this problem. So, for example, if you're looking at someone's like report, you can see someone maybe has this sort of glycan signature, which suggests that they are suffering from high stress. And it's a cortisol problem that's driving this. Or you may get someone that has a different pattern that they know has been correlated quite accurately with perimenopause, which we know increases biological age, or a hormone problem. So I think it's much more about not just getting a number, but being like, this is probably why it's too high. Or, so being able to actually do something about it, which I think is a key thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I was actually talking to Glycan Age a while ago, and I was going to retest with them, but then I was pregnant and then early postpartum. And they told me like there's no point in testing during that time because it's an inflammatory condition. And so they said your age is definitely going to be higher. Just wait until however many months or years passed.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I've just left it, because there's just no point right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. No, we do. We see it. It does go up in pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
In
Yeah.
relation to my
Hormones.
CRP, yeah, hormones, my inflammation biomarker, I did test. And during third trimester, I think it was like a week before I gave birth, it was so high. It was like, and I was like shocked. I was like, this is how much inflammation is happening in my body. Okay. But now it's lower again, but it was definitely a shock. And when I think through doing these tests and all of the different things that they might measure, I also wonder if there's like, and I don't know, like I think there is a platform developing this. I think they're called 100 Health, where we could kind of take all of these different biological tests, take the ages, and take our data from our wearables and really create more of like a general biological age. Because I think it would be helpful to understand like, this organ is aging at this rate and this blood biomarker is aging at this rate. And like I've done a microbiome test that gave me a biological age, right? And so it would be helpful to kind of just maybe have like, I picture like a little human body and like numbers on it saying like, this is 32, this is 23, this is 64, whatever it is. Like, I don't know.
I think ultimately that's a goal. I think there definitely are some companies that are working on that. But yeah, that would be the goal, 100%.
Yeah. And so how does Nuchido, like how does NAD, obviously like the big question, how does this play into the biological age?
So NAD has been found to be one of the only molecules actually so far that impacts all of the hallmarks of aging. So when I talk about the hallmarks of aging, what I'm talking about is basically the things that are effectively going wrong in our cells that are actually driving the entire aging process that we see, that we feel, that we experience on the outside effectively as a human. Because what we know is that despite the way we feel and what we look like, it all starts deep within our bodies at the cellular level. That is where the aging process starts. And NAD is an incredibly important cellular molecule that we know is very important for basically keeping our cells in good health. So it does many different things, but two things that it's very important for are firstly energy production. So making sure that our cells and our mitochondria are able to function at full capacity to give our cells all of the energy that they need. But also NAD acts as a fuel basically for a lot of repair processes in our cells. So, right now, even just us sitting here, we literally have this army of repair enzymes that are going around looking for any damage and repairing the damage in our cells before we ever even know it's an issue. And NAD acts as a fuel to power many of these repair enzymes. So that means that it's very important for cellular health. And when linking this back to biological age, if your cellular health is good, if the energy is good in the cells, if the repair is happening, then your biological age is going to be good. It's going to be probably lower than your chronological age. But as NAD starts to decline, which we know it does as we get older, then energy goes down, repair goes down, you start to get damage in the cells, and that ultimately increases biological age. And then you don't just experience this on the inside. This is when you start to experience and see the signs of aging. You start to feel like you're tired. You start to get brain fog. Your energy levels are going down. You're not as resilient as you used to be. You're not bouncing back. Everything from the skin not healing as well, things like that. So there's been a lot of interest in NAD because we know it declines as we get older. So scientists said, well, if it declines, but it's doing all this fantastic work in the cells, then why don't we not let it decline? Can we increase NAD levels, or can we boost it back to youthful levels? And if we do this, will it have an impact on the aging process? And that's what we are now seeing. We're seeing that it really does have an impact on those hallmarks of aging and ultimately how we experience aging.
Wow. I love that. And it's so interesting to think about boosting that. And I wonder, actually, like you probably know, like what age does it actually start to decrease?
Oh, this is where it gets a little bit depressing.
Okay. Probably like what, 30, 25?
What the studies show is actually it basically starts declining from birth.
Oh,
And yeah, even by the time you are 20, you've lost half of the NAD that you were born with. And then by the time you're 40, this is halved again. So when you look at this on a graph, it is like an exponential decline. It really does plummet. And the key thing to probably add as well, that this is different in everyone. And the main reason it's slightly different in everyone is due to lifestyle, because it's very much driven by how good or how bad your lifestyle is. And again, this makes sense. So if you think about the fact that NAD is being used as a fuel for repair, if you have the type of lifestyle that is continually damaging your body, if you are, filling it with junk food, you're smoking, you're drinking, you've got sunburn, all these things that are damaging our cells, that is going to be draining your NAD supplies way faster than somebody who's, looking after themselves, trying to protect the cellular health, trying to reduce inflammation in the body. So it declines in everyone, but the rate at which it declines will be different depending on lifestyle.
oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if you were to take something like your supplement, but you were to live a life that wasn't necessarily the healthiest, like some of those things that you're saying, like maybe you drink every weekend or you vape or smoke or have nicotine or whatever, or like even beyond substances, like say your diet is just a lot of processed
Yeah.
food, like would this actually make a difference, or is lifestyle and nutrition number one?
I would always say lifestyle and nutrition is number one. Obviously, if you're doing everything bad and then not taking any supplements, always having a supplement is going to do something. But I am the first person to say that, you really, if you're going to invest in a supplement or invest in anything like this, then, you want to be helping yourself by not undoing it, by
Yeah.
just going out and eating junk food or whatever. But yeah, lifestyle is a big factor. And actually, some of the lifestyle practices that you can be doing, things that we know are good for us, work in part by increasing our NAD levels. So things like exercise, we know that boosts our NAD levels naturally. Fasting, that is also boosting NAD levels as well. So it shows the importance of NAD and how beneficial it is because, in part, some of the healthy lifestyle practices are having their beneficial effect by naturally increasing NAD.
Yeah. But we can also take it too far though, right? Like you can
Oh, yeah.
overfast and you can over exercise, especially as a woman, which would then likely decrease NAD faster and decrease our biological age.
Absolutely. And I talk about this a lot actually, because I think that a lot when it comes to the body, it really is all about balance. And unfortunately, in the longevity world and the biohacking world, we see a lot of people with a personality that maybe like to take things to the extreme. um, so I've seen many people who've had their biological age tested who would probably consider themselves as a biohacker and think they are doing everything correct, and their biological age comes back way, way high. And they're like, hang on a minute, like, why is this? And, and then I get them to list, for example, their morning routine. And they're like, yeah, I'm doing like 20 minutes in an ice bath and I'm doing like fasting all day. And then I'm doing like this and I'm like, this is actually quite stressful to your body. And, we know stress drives down NAD levels and increases biological age. So it is really about balance.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I've been there. Just doing, I went through such an intermittent fasting phase where I was doing it way too much. And then it was impacting my sleep and my menstrual cycle, which is kind of like the trajectory that happens with women when they overfast. So how, I mean, not the ultimate question, but one of the questions I think about when I look at this, and for everyone looking on the camera, I'm just looking at the supplement bottle here. How does this how is this different from the other longevity supplements out there? Because now I feel like so many people, or it's becoming more mainstream of like marketing towards longevity, and even Healthspan is becoming more of a common term now. So how do these ingredients specifically make a difference versus maybe something else that's on the market?
Yeah. So our product is actually very different when it comes to NAD boosting. So again, NAD is completely having its moment. It's gone from people really not knowing what it is to now people being like, yeah, give me NAD injections, give me IVs, like give me it in a pill, like put it on my face, like we'll take it anyway, it's good. But a lot of people, unfortunately, don't actually understand the biology of why it's declining in the first place. So what our product is designed to do is it is designed to switch back on your body's natural NAD production, which is very different because a lot of people and a lot of products are simply trying to put NAD back into the body, which, when you think about it, it makes complete sense. NAD has declined, so you want to get it back in there. But unfortunately, what we know is it's not as simple as that because NAD is a very unstable and a very large charged molecule, which means its bioavailability is terrible. So number one, you can't just put NAD in a pill and swallow it because it gets completely degraded in the gut. So a lot of people will ask us, well, this is an NAD product, but it's got no NAD in it. So the first thing is if you see a product that says it has pure NAD in it, run a mile because it will not get through the gut. So then everyone started saying, well, let's take NAD injections or let's put it in drips and do it that way. Again, we thought that made sense because it's bypassing the gut, it's putting it straight into the blood, and therefore you're getting it into the body. But then again, we realized there was another problem in that, yes, you get it into the blood, but NAD doesn't actually do very much at all in the blood. In fact, it's never naturally found there in high concentrations. NAD has to be inside of our cells because that's where the mitochondria are. That's where all the repair pathways are. That's where everything that NAD interacts with is all in our cells. And because NAD is a very large charged molecule, it can't pass freely across the cell membrane. So it actually gets stuck in the blood. So so a lot of people don't realize that. And despite the fact there's a lot of people doing the IVs and doing the injections, the clinical data supporting that it actually gets into the cells is very, very limited. And there's actually some evidence come out recently showing it could actually be pro-inflammatory. Because suddenly the body has a large amount of NAD in the blood, which is not naturally found there. So the body goes, oh my goodness, has there been an injury? Has there been a trauma? Why is all this NAD that's supposed to be inside the cells suddenly outside? and it initiates an inflammatory reaction as a precaution, which we know we don't want any more inflammation. So I think we're going to start to see a bit of a change in the landscape there as more of that evidence comes out. The other types are precursors. So NMN, probably the most famous one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea with these is that they are small enough to get into the cells. You can take them orally. And they're like the raw material that your body uses to make NAD. So again, several years ago, this made sense. Let's give the body more of the raw material than it needs to make NAD, and hopefully it'll turn it into NAD. But unfortunately, what we now know is the root cause of NAD decline. So the thing that is causing the whole issue in the first place is in our cells, we have an enzyme that takes the raw material or takes the precursors and turns them into the big NAD molecule. And it's this enzyme that declines with age. And that is the number one reason why our NAD goes down. So if you take NMN, for example, you are like piling raw material into a factory that actually doesn't have the machines to actually turn it into anything. So what we did is after a lot of research, we decided, there's nothing out there that's actually addressing the root cause of the problem. So why don't we design a formulation that is actually switching back on this enzyme? So that's exactly what our product Nuchido Time Plus does. It switches back on the enzyme in our cells. It's an enzyme called NAMPT, to allow your cells to naturally start producing NAD again. So we decided this is what we're going to do. And also we've done a full human double-blind placebo-controlled clinical study to prove that it actually does this, because obviously this is a very different way, from everyone else. So a lot of the pushback was, well, can this actually work? Can you actually switch back on natural NAD production? So that's exactly what we demonstrated in the trial. We showed, we literally measured the levels of the enzyme in people and showed that it went from being low before they started to high. We also measured levels of inflammation, showed a reduction in inflammation. And going back to what we were speaking about earlier, we also measured biological age. And we showed in 28 days, we were able to reverse biological age by 1.26 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it shows that by boosting NAD, but in a sustainable way, by fixing the root cause of the problem, that actually then leads to a measurable improvement in cellular health and biological age. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. Would it make sense to do a combo of like NMN with your product, right? So like you're feeding more into the factory and now there's more workers in the factory from
Yeah.
you guys?
So we actually have a precursor in there as well. So
Mm.
we don't use NMN, we don't use NR, we actually use nicotinamide. So NMN, NR, nicotinamide, niacin, these are all precursors of vitamin B3. So they're all vitamin B3 derivatives. All of them are the raw materials that the body uses to make NAD. It can use different types. Now, there's a lot of hype about NMN, there's a lot of hype about NR, but if you look at the studies, actually plain old nicotinamide is the most bioavailable form, and certainly it is the form that your body naturally uses. But because of certain figures in the industry and, certain patents and maybe things like that, everyone's pushed towards NMN. But if you look at the data, nicotinamide is actually what your body naturally uses as the precursor, not NMN and not NR, which is exactly why we use that as our raw material, shall we say.
Oh, that's so interesting. And obviously you can't patent that because it's a vitamin B3 precursor.
Yeah, exactly. So within the formulation, we've got the raw material, so going into the factory, but we've also fixed the factory. So we've got the enzyme activated again. What we've also done is put in other ingredients in there that help to reduce some of the wastage of NAD, because that's another big factor or another big root cause of NAD decline. So we spoke earlier about how lifestyle can really impact our NAD levels, and a big factor in this is all to do with inflammation. So we know there are a lot of inflammatory processes in our cells that seem to increase as we get older. And a lot of them literally drain our NAD supplies. So we have some ingredients in there that actually inhibit those inflammatory processes to prevent the NAD from getting wasted. So it's literally, again, using the factory analogy, it's like going in at the factory and going, okay, let's get more raw material. Let's fix the machines. Let's get all the workers in. Let's fix the leaks. It's kind of going around the whole NAD factory and fixing all the little bits.
That's smart. It's very 360, very holistic. And,
Yeah.
I think that's really smart. I wonder, I mean, this is like just kind of where my brain goes. When you are looking at the research and the data, is there any research that shows different levels of NAD across different populations in the world? Because I'm just thinking, as we talk about like lifestyle and the choices we make in North America or Europe versus like someone living and on an organic farm in like Costa Rica or Mexico with like a completely different environment and has like a village around them and doesn't have necessarily modern stressors that we have. Is there any research that says, yeah, living closer to nature does correlate with higher NAD levels?
So I don't think there's been any specific studies done on that, but I would bet a lot of money
Yeah.
that absolutely would be the case, just because we know there's such a strong link between our lifestyle and our NAD levels, and also our NAD levels and our biological age, and the biological age and lifestyle. It's like a bit of a triangle, really.
Yeah. Or even like research of people today versus like 30 years ago or 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably not, right? But I just wonder of like when life was simpler and there was less technology and less sitting it down at a desk to work all day. Um, and people were interacting more, people were outside more. Like it doesn't even have to be a different part of the world. It could just be a different time in this place. I just
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. So if you just think about it, like I always say, our biology is not designed for the lifestyle that we are living today. We're living a very comfortable, easy life. And actually, our biology is designed not to live an easy and comfortable life, which is why there's been such interest in things like fasting and exercise. Obviously not to the extremes, but we know that a lot of the repair processes and the beneficial pathways in our cells are only ever activated in times of a little bit of stress, this idea of hormesis. So if you think about it, if we are, the enzyme, this NAMPT enzyme that actually increases NAD production in our cells, it is triggered by energy stress. So it is triggered by exercise, where we're using more energy, or it is triggered by short periods of fasting, where we don't have the energy coming in. Those two things literally switch on that enzyme in your cells, causing your cells to make more NAD, which we then know improves cellular health. So it makes complete sense that actually, if there was some data on that yeah, we would probably see that we have way lower NAD levels than we maybe did, back when we were running around all the time, when we're hunting for our food, when we were, because at that point, these pathways were getting activated as they needed to be. And I always say now it's such a shame because we actually have all this wonderful biology inside of ourselves, which are just not getting switched on because of the lives that we live now. And unfortunately, evolution takes a much longer time to catch up.
Yeah. It's so funny, like the hypocrisy, or even just like I'm just thinking about my own career of like being in the health and wellness and biohacking longevity space. Yet my entire business is online and I work at a desk and I like have a podcast. And it's like, I'm like, really? Should I be doing this with my career or should I be like out? I don't know. Like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, be a farmer, I guess. I have no idea. But just in terms of like you said, like our lifestyle is so not like it doesn't promote health at the end of the day. It doesn't. It deteriorates health. And anyway, so I'm just going on a tangent and I just think like every
Yeah, but the good thing is the awareness of that. I think that is the thing, to be aware that actually this is not what we're designed for, and try to incorporate some of those things that our bodies are designed for. And, as well, just talking about diet and plants and stuff, like a lot of the ingredients in our supplement, you'll notice are botanicals. They're not like, these are not drugs. These are not like synthetic things. They're botanicals, because again, a lot of these molecules. So, for example, we've got something in there called Sophora japonica, which is an activator of this enzyme. So again, we were probably eating these plants back in the day that were naturally switching on these enzymes. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so grateful we have access to your product to help us alongside lifestyle and nutrition so that we don't have to age any faster and deal with a lot of the decline that can come. Yeah, I'm just like so impressed. So if people want to try Nuchido Time Plus, where can they do that and how can they find you?
So the best place is our website, which is just nuchido.com, which is spelled Nuchido. And yep, go to our website. You can order on there. On Instagram, we do a lot of educational content, which is at Nuchido, or you can find me at Dr. Nichola Conlon, where I talk all sorts of stuff, not just about NAD, but about everything to do with aging in general. So if you want to geek out on the science.
Yeah, I love seeing where you are and all the talks and everything that you do. It's just like, yeah, it's very inspiring. I will link this in the show notes and on my website so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was great. And we are going to hop into my private community now. Thank you for listening to Biohacking with Brittany. I hope today's conversation gave you something to take into your own life, a practice, a perspective, or simply a reminder to trust your body. If you love this episode, please leave a review, share it with someone else who could benefit, and join me over on Instagram at BioHackingBrittany for more. And if you're ready to go deeper, you can explore my retreats, community, favorite tools, all linked for you in the show notes.